Okay, so a focus group is a two-credit, credit no credit course offered um, at the University of Washington under the Comparative History of Ideas department, and it's designed to be a 2-hour, once-a-week course where students get together to talk about a particular inquiry, and one of the key aspects of it is that it's created out of student interest.
The focus groups are generally designed for undergraduates to design their own sort of course of study. So if they're interested in something like a particular topic in the media or a particular topic that they may have encountered somewhere else, they can put together a class for other students to come together and think about.
Learning in a focus group is different from normal seminar work or, taking a lecture course where you have a discussion section, in that the content of the course is much more focused. It's usually organized, as I mentioned, around an inquiry, and that inquiry is usually related to some sort of contemporary issue or an interest that the students bring, because it's developed out of student interest under the guidance of a faculty member or a graduate student. So the learning experience for the students who take the course is very intimate.
I think the great thing about the focus group is that it is small generally. So like I said, it's seminar style. So it's the numbers are kept down on purpose so that everyone can sort of participate in the discussion. The focus groups that I've led tend to be experiential. So with the number of people, I get to actually have them try games or play games or do the thing that we're actually thinking about. The other thing about a focus group that I've said before is that it is low risk, right, or no risk. So it's graded credit, no credit. So either you get credit for just coming and doing and participating, and in that way, there's no real sort of the pressure of like assessment. So that can often encourage people to sort of try new things, take different sort of intellectual or academic risks that would be sort of useful.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting about the idea of a focus group as an educational experience from the perspective of the leader, the person who's leading the focus group or designing the focus group, is that the focus group as a learning experience in the larger institution of the University of Washington, and the other types of learning experiences you can have in different types of class settings, the focus group is very unique in that it is very agile or responsive to, it can be very agile and responsive to live inquiries about topics or inquiries that have been going on in a discipline for a long time or are operating in academic discourse or some publication in a discipline for a long time and seem sort of set in stone.
As a teacher, it allows me, well, first of all, a good range of like possibility for study. So, I teach through the English department, and the English department says, here are the classes that you will be teaching. And though I get a lot of leeway in designing the classes that I want to teach, I still am constrained by certain requirements or incomes and outcomes that they want to get across. In the focus group, I can sort of like have these little sort of pet projects. So, there are focus groups on literature, history, political science, religion, popular culture. And so the thing is that if there is something in particular or in a way I could sort of imagine it as, here is a research question that I'm interested in, and the focus group allows me to sort of explore that question.
From the perspective of the student who is actually designing the course, so in my case, I'm a graduate student here at the University of Washington in the English department, but what I've really been interested in is mentoring undergraduates who have interest in things that I know about, and areas of specialty that I'm engaged in, and helping them design their own courses around their own interests and inquiries.
The great thing also about focus groups is that they tend to be self-selected. So the students that are taking them are usually students who are interested in that particular topic anyway to begin with. So they tend to be more dynamic and invested and that sort of thing. So That's not to say that there aren't sort of the usual problems with like these kinds of courses, but they are a little bit more flexible in terms of like what you're going to put into them and what you're going to get out of them.
To give you an example, I have a student who took one of my seminars on the poetics of play and digital role-playing games. It was a course designed as a seminar, so a larger course, not a focus group, which was introducing students into the emerging field of game studies with a particular focus on a shared experience of 4 games in the historical genre of the role-playing game, digital role-playing game. And what we did is we had all these experiences with these digital role-playing games, and then thought through the current state of game studies and game theory in the literature. And he got really excited about a particular text that I had assigned a chapter from. And the text is Persuasive Games, and it's by Ian Bogost, and it was published recently. And basically the argument of the text is that games make arguments, that games can be read as rhetorical machines, that they actually make statements and claims about the material that they simulate or represent. And this really was a point of interest for this student, Elliot. And so in the next quarter, he approached me and said, I really want to sort of think more about this, and we had a series of discussions about it. And we decided, well, let's come up with a focus group and see how this new theory, which seems to be positioning itself as a canonical text in game studies more recently, but at the time it was sort of really new. So Elliot was not only interested in the material, but actually interested in the fact that this is a new thing, and no one really knows exactly how to take it. And so he wanted to design a focus group, so I helped him do that. And a couple of quarters later, here he is this quarter, leading his own course called Actions Speak Louder, and it's basically addressing what is called procedural literacy in digital games. So he's taken his insights from Bogost and designed a focus group where he can bring friends and other colleagues together to discuss a couple of games in the context of Bogost's theory of games as persuasive.
Well, I decided to do a focus group because the topic of games as media isn't covered in the institutional programs anywhere at the moment. I wanted to learn more about it, and doing a focus group, which also has the aspect to it that it's not just me teaching, it's a collaborative situation. It's a collection of everyone involved who bring their own interests and different nuances and abilities to the forum. So I also wanted to learn about the topic, not just teach it. Because of the collective element, it's generally more productive and more engaging and more interesting than a traditional classroom led by a lackluster professor. The experience of teaching a focus group, and I say teaching in quotes, is actually extremely educational. You may have heard the saying, you never really know something until you have to teach it. That's very much true, I can say now. And that's the difficulty of dealing with a topic that's not in the standard institutional framework. You have to build from scratch in a lot of cases. Focus groups allow very modern, very relevant issues to be brought up very quickly. And more than that, they allow cross-disciplinary work, which is increasingly important in solving those same sort of issues, in addressing those same sort of issues. Any sort of department that wants to bring in people from across disciplines has this as a really good possibility, because the focus is on people bringing in their collective experience to address the issue, whatever that happens to be for a particular focus group. So I think they're a really positive tool. They're not going to replace the institutions, they're not going to replace teaching of scientific paradigms, but they allow for a greater fusion of paradigms and a greater breadth of knowledge brought to bear on more immediate topics.